Auburn and Ole Miss for different reasons. Of course, the Auburn Tigers have been a little helter-skelter here in the first few weeks of the season, but they face an Ole Miss team that is now on a little bit of a run here. They've won 3 straight games. There you see the line, Auburn, a slim 2.5-point favorite there on the road in Oxford. I think this is a really compelling matchup. Both Chris Beard and Stephen Pearl looking, in my opinion, to use this part of the season to kind of, give their teams a bit of a boost as they go in the middle part of their year. I mentioned it when Courtney was on a moment ago. There are 11 teams that are either 3-2 or 2-3. It's a log jam right in the middle.
Yeah, log jam.
And there's no undefeated teams, and there's no teams that don't have a win at all. So there are a bunch of teams that will use this part of the season. I would say the next 3 weeks will really show the separation there in the SEC, and so I think this is big for both.
Yeah, and I really think this is a make-or-break game for year one under Stephen Pearl, especially for this Auburn team. I mean, we've been talking about him. You had to temper the expectations a little bit. You can't fully expect a team to just be able to reload and go back to the Final Four.
Absolutely.
Especially losing all of that experience that you ended up losing. But when you take a look at, since the start of SEC play, you had the tough loss at Georgia that you probably thought you could have squeaked one out there in overtime. Mm-hmm. You had the controversial loss at home to Texas A&M.
Right.
That I think a lot of people are going to be thinking about for a while. And then you had the blowout win against Arkansas that made you think, all right, maybe they're starting to turn the corner finally. But then you follow it up with a road loss at Missouri that they've been streaky. I see Missouri a lot like Auburn, where they can win a few games that they're really not supposed to, but at the same time they're not truly consistent enough to make a deep run. And then that score at the bottom kind of concerns me. Only a 4-point win at home against South Carolina, a team that Arkansas just blew up by, I think it was almost 40 points.
Yeah, and Stephen Pearl used the word hungover when he was talking about his team. Like, hey, we were hungover in that game against Missouri, so you would have come out and expect a blowout effort, kind of like what we were talking about with Courtney Mims after Auburn beat Arkansas. Arkansas came back and played South Carolina, blew their doors off at one point, almost up 40 points. You would expect something like that out of Auburn, especially that game being at home. Were they looking ahead to this Ole Miss game or what? But this is a chance, I think, for Stephen Pearl's bunch to kind of get back on track. I know that they got the win at the end of the day. It's all about getting the win. They did not get upset there by South Carolina. They did get the win, and it was a great game by Filip Jovic, one of the guys that came off the bench. And really, it was hilarious. I was listening to the commentary, and even the home broadcasters. This is the Auburn crew, by the way, talking. He's like, where in the world did this come from? But I feel like at some point you do need, guys like this to really step up. And he doesn't have to do this every night. No. But just to be able to have a guy that comes out there and has the impact that he does on defense and then score 23 on offense, that's got to be refreshing if you are Coach Stephen Pearl.
Yeah, I mean, he did it on 9 of 12 shooting and 23 off the bench. You need these type of performances if your so-called leaders aren't stepping up for you, and especially in these games where you should beat this team. As Auburn, you should beat this South Carolina team, and it just hasn't gone the way that Stephen Pearl, I think, envisioned it at the beginning of the season. We saw glimpses of success there from Keyshawn Hall, the back-to-back 32-point games, but in my mind, this still relies on your leader and your sixth man from last year, and Todd Pettiford. I mean, he is still struggling, only 12 points per game. And if you take out, I think he had 24 against Georgia before he ended up falling out. If you take out that game, he's south of 10 points per game. Yeah. And all of that is in the last 3 games where they've been up, they've been down, they've been up, they've been down. The one thing that definitely concerns me is that 3-point percentage. I mean, 16%. That can't win you games in today's world. I mean, he's averaging at least 4 assists per game. So, I mean, there is that. But when you talk about a guy that you put so much effort into trying to get to come back to Auburn this year, and he's just not performing alongside some of the off-the-court issues about showing up on time. Yeah. He's not good enough to be doing this.
That's the thing. Is that, like, you have a guy that's supposed to be your leader, and not only not doing the leadership things, but even if he was doing the leadership things, he's not producing he's not really.
What do they call it?
Not producing on the court. Like
he's just going through the motions. It
yes,
seems like.
yes, and it feels like that. And for a guy like Stephen Pearl, who needs some leaders to step up as a first-year head coach, not getting up from top ed on any kind of consistent basis. The one time he played well, you mentioned the game he dropped 24 points, but remember he had to be benched beforehand.
Yeah,
he was benched that game, and then he came in, played well, and took over from there. So he was trying to find a way to get back on track. I think Stephen Pearl's doing the same thing as his team heads over to Ole Miss, and they will play the Rebels tonight. Coach Stephen Pearl talked about Chris Beard's bunch.
If you watched early in the year, I think Coach was looking to get more of an identity defensively, and I think they've established that a little bit. And their 2-point defense has gotten a lot better. They do a great job of just swarming to the basketball and creating turnovers on penetration, or anytime there's an offensive rebound, they do a great job of stripping and ripping. I think Georgia shot 23 or maybe 32 or 23% from two in that game, off of 21 offensive rebounds. So they do a really good job of just being active on all penetration, on all rebounds, and I just think they're playing harder, defensively, and they have the luxury of having three options offensively, that they can really feed and go to, and they have some really nice, accessory pieces that can come out there and, make tough shots. So I just think they're just getting more confident, playing with one another. They only have, Diaz obviously, their lone returning starter, and the rest of the guys are, newer pieces. So kind of like us, they're all figuring out how to gel, with one another, play the game with one another. So I just think they're kind of they found a little bit of that, and got some confidence in it, and it's led to 3 straight wins against some good teams.
So he talked about those 3 straight wins, beat Mississippi State.
Mm-hmm.
Now looking for a 4th win. They're in there in that log jam there at 3-2 as well. I think the jury's still out on this Ole Miss basketball team, but to me, if there is a team that is flying a little under the radar, it could be the squad.
Yeah, and I think A.J. Storr and what he's been able to do, I know we talked about him last week ahead of this Mississippi State game, and it was Kamar Dean over the weekend, who I compared his game to Tyrese Halliburton, and ironically they look pretty similar as well. So I think his emergence in that game against Mississippi State was a major factor. But, I mean, A.J. Storr, I think this is a guy that – I know as of late Chris Beard has been pulling him off the bench. I think he needs to start because when you've got a guy averaging 23.3 points per game during a 3-game win streak, you need to not have him come off the bench. You need him to start these games, and I think he can be that guy that provides the spark. Entering him into the starting lineup, I know he's that spark off the bench right now, but if you can get off to these fast starts and put Auburn in a hole early, then you could probably tap into the mental game here a little bit, because
absolutely,
I'm sure Auburn is coming into this thinking, okay, we cannot lose another game, and it was a close game against South Carolina. Just put the pressure on them early, because you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, you could go out on what Georgia did to Arkansas, go out on a 10-0, 11-0 run to open up the game, and then all the Auburn fans or all the Auburn players are going to be like, oh, great, here we go again, another loss. So you just don't know. You got to apply the pressure early, and I think that's what Chris Beard's team has been able to do since the Christmas break.
Absolutely. So they'll count on A.J. Storr to get it done tonight. Auburn is a slight favorite in this one on the road, which is
I find that a little shocking.
Interesting. Actually, I do too. Considering the fact that in Auburn's last few road games, didn't come out and play very well, and so I am not sure where that confidence comes from for Auburn, or if this is just we're going to fade Ole Miss situation. But I'm with you. I think trying to get a win at the Pavilion will be hard, and it would be different if Auburn's been world beaters on the road. They just haven't been.
Do you think? Here, I'll pose this question to you, and I know it's still early. Do you think Ole Miss is a little bit underrated?
I do. I do. I do. I think that they are a little underrated, but I think as of right now, you almost need to. I think if you're anybody on a Chris Beard team, you just need to wait and see because they don't have any superstars. They have AJ Storrow, who's been good, but they don't have any superstars going into the year. And so I think that you just kind of have to weigh it out. And the non-conference, it wasn't like the non-conference blew you away as far as who they beat and like who they played and everybody else. So I just feel like you're kind of in a wait and see approach as it relates to Ole Miss. And so tonight will be a big step. If they can get it done.
This is the measuring stick, I think, in my opinion, for Chris Beard's bunch.
For sure. And kind of it works both ways because to me, I think Auburn can put themselves up where probably they thought they would be at the beginning of the season and get them back to 500 in conference play.
It's just unfortunate that this matchup is going to be overshadowed by the one there at Bud Walton.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, man. There's too much good basketball tonight. How you got to get the multicast going.
I know. You really do.
Or if you don't have the multicast, you got to get all your TVs out like March Madness.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, especially for tonight's slate. We'll go over those at the end of this hour. Yeah, but 5 games overall, 2